In this video, 10 more songs that are actually covers and you might not have known. Back in 1968, Tommy James and the Shondells released Mony, Mony, which quickly topped the UK charts and reached number 3 in the US. The inspiration for the title came from a flashing sign on the Mutual of New York building, formerly known as Mony, which Tommy James saw from his New York apartment. He was looking for a catchy name for the song, and when he spotted the sign, he knew he had the perfect fit. Years later, in 1981, British rocker Billy Idol decided to cover this song. His version had a grittier rock feel and was featured on his EP Don't Stop. Interestingly, it was a live version released in 1987 that propelled the song to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US. That live rendition became one of Idol's biggest hits. You Can't Hurry Love, made famous by Phil Collins, is actually a cover of a song originally recorded by the Supremes in 1966. Written and produced by the iconic team Holland Dozier Holland, the song quickly climbed to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US and became a top 5 hit in the UK. Its lyrics, inspired by gospel themes, reflect a mother's advice about having patience in finding true love. The track stood out for its infectious rhythm and Diana Ross' powerful vocal performance. In 1982, British musician Phil Collins decided to record You Can't Hurry Love for his second solo album, Hello, I Must Be Going. A self-proclaimed Motown fan, Collins wanted to recreate the energy of the original song as faithfully as possible. His version reached number 1 on the UK charts in January 1983 and broke into the US top 10, cementing his status as a successful solo artist. Phil Collins admitted that the main goal of covering You Can't Hurry Love was to see if he and producer Hugh Padgham could replicate the signature sound of the 60s. He later revealed that, due to the advancements in modern recording technology, it was surprisingly difficult to recreate the raw, authentic drum sound of the original track. You probably know Come On Feel the Noise from Quiet Riot, right? Well, the original version was actually recorded by the British band Slade in 1973. Written by lead singer Noddy Holder and bassist Jim Leah, the song skyrocketed to number 1 on the UK singles chart, marking Slade's 4th chart-topping hit in the UK. Remarkably, it was the first song since the Beatles to debut directly at number 1 on the British charts. The song captured the electrifying energy of Slade's live performances, featuring a chant-along chorus that encouraged audience participation. In 1983, American heavy metal band Quiet Riot covered Come On Feel the Noise for their album Metal Health. Initially, frontman Kevin Dubrow and drummer Frankie Banali weren't thrilled about recording a cover, so they deliberately tried to perform it poorly in hopes that their label would reject the idea. However, the final result was a surprise success. Quiet Riot's version peaked at number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 in November 1983, helping Metal Health become the first heavy metal album to reach number 1 on the Billboard 200. In 1967, Neil Diamond wrote and recorded Red, Red Wine for his album Just For You.
Red, red wine.
The song expresses the pain of a broken heart, with the narrator seeking comfort in red wine to forget a lost love. Though it only reached number 62 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1968, the song found new life through later reinterpretations. In 1983, British band UB40 covered Red, Red Wine for their album Labor of Love, which featured a collection of classic covers. Interestingly, the band was only familiar with the 1969 reggae version by Tony Tribe and didn't realize that Neil Diamond was the original songwriter. UB40's version added a fresh reggae twist to the song. Their version topped the UK charts in 1983 and after a re-release, hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US in 1988. Because of UB40's reggae style, many people believed Red Red Wine was originally a Jamaican song rather than a Neil Diamond composition. Both Neil Diamond's original version and UB40's reggae adaptation have left a lasting mark on music history.
I could escape this feeling with my China.
Did you know that David Bowie's 1983 hit China Girl is actually a re-recording? That's right. The original version was recorded by Iggy Pop. In 1977, Iggy Pop released China Girl on his debut solo album, The Idiot. The song was co-written with David Bowie during their time living in Berlin. The lyrics were inspired by a brief romance Iggy had with Quillen Nguyen, a Vietnamese woman. The song explores themes of unrequited love and Western influence on Eastern cultures. In 1983, David Bowie re-recorded China Girl for his album Let's Dance. This version, produced by Nile Rodgers, had a more polished pop sound and featured an Asian-inspired guitar riff. Released as a single, Bowie's version reached number 2 in the UK and number 10 in the US, becoming one of his biggest hits of the decade. In 1964, the R&B girl group Martha and the Vandellas released Dancing in the Street. Written by Marvin Gaye, William Mickey Stevenson, and Ivy Jo Hunter, the song quickly became an anthem, reaching number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US and solidifying itself as one of the most iconic tracks of the Motown era. Its lyrics celebrate the pure joy of dancing in the streets, capturing the energy and spirit of neighborhood block parties at the time. In 1985, during the Live Aid benefit event, David Bowie and Mick Jagger joined forces to cover Dancing in the Street. Initially, the plan was for them to perform the song live, with Bowie at Wembley Stadium in London and Jagger at John F. Kennedy Stadium in Philadelphia. However, due to a half-second delay in satellite transmission, the idea became unfeasible. Instead, they decided to record the song together in a studio. The session took place in June 1985 at Abbey Road Studios in London and was completed in just 4 hours. Bowie and Jagger's version became a massive hit, topping the UK charts for 4 weeks and reaching number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US. All proceeds from the single were donated to Live Aid's charitable causes. Did you know that Marvin Gaye's classic I Heard It Through the Grapevine wasn't the first version of the song? That's right, it has a rich history with multiple interpretations. Written by Norman Whitfield and Barrett Strong in 1966 for Motown Records, the song tells the story of a heartbroken person who learns about a lover's betrayal through rumors. The phrase "through the grapevine" refers to hearing unverified gossip. The first known recording was by The Miracles in 1966, but their version wasn't released right away. Later, Gladys Knight and the Pips recorded the song, releasing it as a single in September 1967. Their version became a hit, peaking at number 2 on the Billboard charts. In 1967, Marvin Gaye recorded his own take on I Heard It Through the Grapevine, but Motown initially hesitated to release it as a single. However, after the success of Gladys Knight's version, Gaye's rendition was included in his 1968 album, In the Groove. The overwhelmingly positive response from radio stations led Motown to officially release it as a single in October 1968. Gaye's version went on to top the Billboard Hot 100 for 7 consecutive weeks between December 1968 and January 1969, making it one of the biggest hits in Motown history. Other artists have also covered the song over the years. Creedence Clearwater Revival released an 11-minute version on their 1970 album, Cosmo's Factory. In 1973, Dolly Parton wrote, "I Will Always Love You," as a farewell message to her professional partner and mentor, Porter Wagoner, after deciding to pursue a solo career. The song was released in 1974 and quickly climbed to number 1 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart. Parton re-recorded the song in 1982 for the soundtrack of the movie The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, and this version also reached number 1, making her the first artist to top the charts twice with the same song.
But I
Elvis showed interest in recording I Will Always Love You, but Dolly Parton refused to give up half of the publishing rights, as demanded by Elvis's manager, Colonel Tom Parker. It wasn't until 1992 that Whitney Houston recorded I Will Always Love You for the soundtrack of The Bodyguard, in which she starred alongside Kevin Costner. Houston transformed the country ballad into a powerful pop and R&B ballad, turning it into one of the most successful singles of all time. Her version spent 14 consecutive weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and sold over 24 million copies worldwide. It also earned Grammy Awards for Record of the Year and Best Female Pop Vocal Performance in 1994. The famous song Take Me to the River, covered by Talking Heads in 1978, was originally written and recorded by Al Green. In 1974, Al Green, one of the biggest names in soul music, released Take Me to the River on his album Al Green Explores Your Mind. The song was co-written by Green and Mabon Teenie Hodges, a longtime collaborator. Surprisingly, despite its impact, the track was never released as a single at the time. However, it became one of Green's most recognizable songs, thanks to its emotional depth and smooth melody. In 1978, Talking Heads, the American new wave band, covered Take Me to the River for their second album, More Songs About Buildings and Food. Initially, lead singer David Byrne was hesitant to include a cover on the album, but producer Brian Eno convinced him otherwise. Talking Heads' version had a slower, more experimental arrangement, incorporating the band's signature offbeat style. Released as a single, it became the band's first charting hit, peaking at #26 on the Billboard Hot 100 in February 1979.
The tide is high, but I'm holding on.
Popularized by Blondie in 1980, the original version of The Tide is High was actually recorded by the Jamaican group, The Paragons.
The tide is high, but I'm holding on.
In 1967, the rocksteady group The Paragons, led by John Holt, released The Tide is High. The song was written by Holt and produced by Duke Reed. In 1980, American new wave band Blondie re-recorded The Tide is High for their fifth studio album, Auto-American. Blondie's version blended reggae and pop influences, incorporating horn and string arrangements that gave the song a fresh, dynamic feel.
I'm not the kind of girl who gives up just.
Released as a single, it became a #1 hit on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US and also topped the UK charts, becoming one of Blondie's biggest hits. Blondie's version helped introduce Jamaican rhythms to mainstream audiences, inspiring other artists and bands to explore similar sounds.
I'm gonna be your #1.
So, how many of these songs did you already know were covers? It's fascinating how some tracks become so closely associated with a particular artist that the original version is almost forgotten. But if there's one takeaway from this list, it's that a great song will always find a way to be reinvented. Now, tell me in the comments, which version do you prefer, the original or the cover? See you in the next video.